Hello guys, my name is Joanna and welcome you back to my channel. And thank you very much for watching this video, especially that I don't make them very systematically. So, I'm really appreciate that you are here. And if you like this video, it would be great if you leave a like, maybe some comments, and most importantly, join to my subscribers. Okay, what I have for you today, I have something special, and you have to know that I'm really like recording this kind of video because this will be top list ranking. Today I'm gonna tell you about 15 my favorite dungeon crawlers. So I guess I will take you on a little trip to the dungeons, underground, unexplored lands, fantastic wars, and other amazing places. So I invite you to watch this top list, and if you feel like it, right under this video, what are your favorite dungeon crawlers? And now let's get started. Okay guys, here we go, but before starting, I'm sure that you will expect big boxes, a lot of plastic miniatures, tokens, cards, boards, and all these components. And yes, I must admit, this kind of dungeon crawlers will be today in this video. In fact, mostly of them, but now I'm starting this ranking with a board game which is a dungeon crawler without all these attributes, because the box is tiny. We have inside only few miniatures, some cards, and a lot of great fun. Ladies and gentlemen, Tiny Epic Dungeons. As you can see, this is such a small dungeon crawler, which, however, in terms of gameplay, is completely inferior to those large and more grandiose board games. This board game is not only compact, but also pocket-sized and gives us much fun as the more complex dungeon crawlers, in my opinion. Here we have modular boards that you build from cards, and there are these dungeons, within corridors, and in them traps, obstacles, and of course enemies. The smaller ones, the fight with which is a kind of experience and preparation of your character for the final battle with the boss, who is hiding somewhere in some chamber in these dungeons. So your goal is to find it and pull it out of his lair and defeat it. All this happens in the light of a hiding torch, so we have a time pressure. So will you manage to develop your hero, equip him with epic weapons, armor or spells? And this is what you can experience in this tiny dungeon crawler. And I think this came out really well in this board game. So today, position number 15, Tiny Epic Dungeons. Okay, next place, next board game, and this will be a little trip to the borderline of insanity and madness. And in all of this, their fingers, or I rather say then tentacles, involved no one else than the great internal ones, or rather the one big type that is slowly walking on the track. Today on position number 14, as you can see, Tulu Dev May Die. And when it comes about this board game, this scenario are one of the main things I like about this dungeon crawler. Because every time when I reach another envelope and I open it to see what new scenario, what new adventure waited me, it was so exciting. In this game, each scenario is interesting, different, and that's what I really like and appreciate about Tulu Dev May Die. It's a pleasant feeling to wonder what task awaits my Richard this time, what he will have to do, whether he will succeed or not. I like it, and I like it a lot, but also like how this game is made. You can see here the attention to every detail, and there is quite a lot of it, and it all builds up this atmosphere in this board game very nicely. And the very atmosphere of this game has quite an unusual approach to the theme of Cthulhu. We have such an ironic approach. Maybe it's not a joke, or laughing at it, but you feel such a specific irony here. Here in Tulu Dev May Die, the whole fight against Cthulhu, it's not taken so seriously, and I like the Tulu Dev May Die for that too. So this dungeon crawler is one of my favorites, today on position number 14, but if you are curious what will happen next, well, watch it, because I'm just getting started. Now, since I started talking about insanity and madness in board games, let's say in the same, but this time it's going to be a board game where you have to use application. I don't like it in board games, but in this dungeon crawler, application is great. This is Mansion of Madness. This is my copy, so the title is a little different, but trust me, this is Mansion of Madness, so one of my favorite dungeon crawler. And the app in the case of this board game adds even more to the atmosphere, and you can feel the heavy and dark atmosphere, the mysterious, the puzzles, the thin line between the characters' sanity and their madness. I really like the music and all those sounds perfectly reflecting what is happening. I like the voiceover that introduces us to the adventure in this dungeon crawler. It's all very immersive in this board game. In the Mansion of Madness, as in Tulu Dev May Die, we have nice atmospheric graphics. Although I like the ones in Cthulhu better, but here we also have a well-illustrated board game. Unfortunately, not everything here is pretty. For example, monster bases are something terrible. I can understand how this element could ruin the aesthetics of the game so much. One of the monsters is some kind of combination of a Cthulhu, dragon and bat. Is also such a creature and strange something. And well, as usual in Fantasy Flight games, there is no molding in the box. So all the miniatures have been driven and hope nothing happens to them. And I think I can say that's the madness. Now you guys, one of my favorite team, the Lord of the Rings, and less favorite board games with the same title. And again, this is my copy, so the title is a little bit different and less board game because this game is with application again. And it's impossible to play without it, so you have to accept that. But I have to admit that in this board game, the application does exactly what an app in board games should do. It's exploring the unknown to me. It reveals new corners of the map as I played, and definitely I much prefer this form than laying out the entire map at the beginning of the game, where I can see and know everything. Here, in the Lord of the Ring, I find out new things as the game progresses, and that is great. So each time I have a surprise about where I can go, what awaits me there, what decisions are in front of me, what monsters will appear, and how my adventure will unfold. So traveling around the map in this board game, I can feel the team spirit. When after the scenario we gather around the campfire and distribute the found items, equipment between each other, it all makes me really like coming back to this dungeon crawler, and Lord of the Rings is one of my favorites. Before I tell you about my favorite dungeon crawler from place number 10, I will be surrounded by zombies, whole horde of these monsters. This black plague, but it will be a green horde and even space ones, Xenos in this case. So zombicide invader, green horde and black plague, because in this position will be whole series of zombicide. You know, regardless of which part of the zombicide I play, the combat with each type of zombies is very similar. One time I kill whole hordes with trebuch, another time I shoot with, you know, laser remote controlled robot or cannon, or traditionally with sword or spell. It all depends in which part of series I play and which world, whether in space or fantastic, I have to kill these zombies, but every time it's just great fun. And now in this 11th place in this ranking, I combined all these parts, Black Plague, Green Horde and Invader, as one dungeon crawler because I always have a lot of fun playing each of them. I also appreciate the entire Zombicide series for being a dungeon crawler that I can easily play even with completely casual players because the rules are easy to explain, the game is cooperative so you can help each other and everyone has a lot of fun in this kind of adventure. So, first 5 places behind us and now time to enter to the final top 10, my favorite dungeon crawlers, and in the position number 10 now will be without the box, but in a moment I will show you and tell you a little bit more about Massive Darkness Helpscape because this is one of my best dungeon crawler. And you have to know that this is a dungeon crawler that immediately rocketed into the high 10 places in my ranking. It even ranked ahead to the entire Zombicide series, so it made quite a surprise. So Massive Darkness is a board game very similar to Zombicide, but I like this dungeon crawler better. It's an adventure with a lot of items and you just want to find them for your character. You know, open the chests, find cool equipments and equip your hero with armor, swords, wands and other various great gear. But you also want to kill more monsters to get such equipment as a reward for killing them. I also really like the great hero development in Massive Darkness. Each hero is asymmetrical, each has its own unique abilities and each has different boards, tokens, decks of cards and a whole system for using those attributes. I also like the large variety of enemies, for smaller ones to huge monsters, and the big ones in a Massive Darkness are really huge miniatures. You know, a little bit too big for me, not only to cover a whole space on the board, but you know, the box itself had to be huge to accommodate that amount of plastic. But for those of you who likes and can paint, this is plenty to do in a case of this size. The gameplay itself seems a bit too simple to me, but by including some home rules, the difficulty level can be easily increased. So for geeks, I think it will be just okay. Position number 9 is another one of my favorite dungeon crawler, but this will be another unusual approach of this type of game, because in this game is no board, at least in a traditional form, because in this game we create a board, like it out in a cards, as you can see, Arkham Horror, the card game. But just because there is no board doesn't mean it's easier or, you know, less atmospheric. I would say quite the opposite. For me, Arkham Horror is hard game to play. It's hard to win. It takes a lot of effort to get to the next scenario. I used to play in such a way that I didn't start another scenario until I had achieved a result that satisfied me, and that usually means going through the same scenario, you know, several times. But that way I didn't spoil my surprise when I started a new adventure. So on the one hand, I would get angry when I went wrong, that I had to start again, and it was hard. And on the other hand, it was very curious what would happen next. So the card version of Dungeon Crawler really appealed to me. I like card games. This one is challenging, has great illustration, captures the horror of Lovecraft, so it has to be in my list of favorite dungeon crawlers.
No matter what they call it, no matter what they want it.
Okay, now another my favorite dungeon crawler, and this board game will be another example to kind of a controversy, because publish a dungeon crawler that doesn't have a single miniature, a gram of plastics. It's a pretty risk. What do you think? But in this board game, in this dungeon crawler, Machina Arcana, it works, and it works very, very well. This dungeon crawler is combining atmosphere, immersion, and a great-looking board game without miniatures. For me, it's a very successful combination of dark Cthulhu and steampunk. It's the first time, and it's the first time I've seen such a combination in a board game, and it turned out great. As I said, there are no miniatures in this game, but there are a lot of strategic and tactical decisions to be made. You are always running out of stamina points, and you want to do as much as possible. This is not a joyful game of rolling the dice on the board and just playing fate. In Machina Arcana, I have to decide where I leave my hero, whether I fight this monster or maybe it's better to run away. I really like such decisions in board games which require analytics. And these dungeon crawlers looks great. Lots of very different dungeon boards, very atmospheric illustration on the cards, great players boards, very nice standish, totally enough for me to have a great time playing this game, without miniatures. So if you like a dark Cthulhu combined with a steampunk atmosphere, and you don't need miniatures on the dungeon crawler, I think you will like it, Machina Arcana, like I do. A while ago, I talked about deep experience in Machina Arcana, so my proposition is stay in that deep, because the next one of my favorite dungeon crawler is Deep Madness. And I have to tell you that when I play in this dungeon crawler, I feel the pressure here in this board game. The action in this board game takes place in an underwater base at the bottom of the ocean, but it's not just drawing that threatens the characters who have slayed here. Sooner or later, you will encounter more and more terrifying creatures in the corridors of this base. In this game, I like the character activation order track relative to the monsters. It matters a lot where your character stands on the board, how far away the creature is, what type of enemy it is, whether it activates before or after your character, and what happens as a result. All this causes you to plan your every move. I like a lot in this dungeon crawler, heavy and dark atmosphere in this game. It fits this game perfectly. The combination of Cthulhu, the threat from monsters, the madness you can get, and the base underwater with the pressure, time pressure, enemy pressure. It worked out great together in Deep Madness, so this is one of my favorite dungeon crawler, as you can see. Now time to place number 6. And I have a bit problem with this board game, as you can see, Sword and Sorcery. Unfortunately, I can't play of this board game as often as I would like. That's because Sword and Sorcery is a dungeon crawler that has a lot of rules, so showing this game to casual players is challenging and doesn't always make sense. But believe me, as soon as I have a chance to go to this world full of magic, full of intelligent enemy, I take it. And I definitely recommend this dungeon crawler to all those players who are not afraid to learn more rules. I really like the character's development in this game, choosing whether I want my character to become more good or more evil. It's loading up more spells, whether you have to plan it out, factor it into your plan of action. And against you, your immortal soul, stand more monsters directed by artificial intelligence, and you can feel that the enemies are not just some stupid zombies walking around the board. These are smart, and fighting them is demanding. Unfortunately, there is something I regret about this game. Too few scenarios. There could be at least 4 more. Basically, I feel it's lacking, and okay, I can fix that by buying the add-on, but too bad it's not included in the base game. There are only 5 first places left to the ranking of my favorite dungeon crawlers. So now you will find out about position number 5, and as you can see, this is Descent. And I will say right away that I will like that I can play this game in several ways: competitive, cooperative, with an app, or playing the campaign. And additionally, there are a lot of interesting scenarios waiting for me, and in them there is also a lot of different enemies to defeat them. What I like about Descent is that I can play the bad guy and, fight against the heroes. This dungeon crawler allows me to do that, and I'm glad that I have that choice, because I don't always expect cooperation from this type of games. So I enjoy playing this board game a lot because of the cool adventure vibe, the enemies, and the whole thing works well together and fits perfectly. And in this occasion, it's worth to mention or show you a newest Descent Legends of the Dark, as you can see, a big box. I still play it, and I like to discover new scenarios in this dungeon crawler. It's so interesting and inviting that whenever I have time, I like to return to this board. But I like the second edition of Descent enough to the number 5 position today. In a moment, the final podium, but before it happens, meet the next dungeon crawler, one of my best, and it will be a really big box. As you can see, a great adventure in Roomhaven. In this board game, we move into a world that was created just for this game. Here we discover places, creatures, events that can only take place in this board game, and it's all very good and interesting, at least for me. Yes. I really like in Roomhaven managing the cards I play. What cards I want to use, how I will play them, whether I will lose a card by using its stronger effects, or maybe it's worth to leave it for the next game. This mechanic works great here, and I really like it. Additionally, I really like how the enemies behave in this game, how they respond to my actions. That is their whole system of managing their behavior. Roomhaven is a great extended board game for many hours of playing, and doing it you want to explore more places, discover new secrets, complete more missions, quests, and develop your hero. This colorful world is very addictive. In truth, the scenarios could be a bit more varied, not just kill everyone, kill the boss, but in each there is always something to do. Like the fact that I can abandon my character, retrieve him, and continue the rest of the adventure with someone else. That's great, and it gives me almost unlimited possibilities. This big box is filled to the brim, and there's a lot of adventure options and fun waiting for players in an absolutely fantastic world. Okay, the final podium. I'm so exciting. And in this case, position number 3 will have to accommodate not only one board game, this one, Nemesis, but 2 Nemesis Lockdown, because in this place I decided to combine these board games. So Nemesis and Nemesis Lockdown are one of my favorites dungeon crawlers. And Nemesis and Nemesis Lockdown are 2 independent games, but at the same time, one is a continuation of the other. I think I can say that 90% of the time there are the same games, because both of the world, the universe, some of the characters, the mechanism are the same in both of these games. Although both of these games are in the same position of this ranking, but if I had to choose one, I would opt for Nemesis Lockdown. But that doesn't mean I'm going to give up on Nemesis. No. I like both, only I have a bit more fun playing Nemesis Lockdown, in part because of the ability to go out onto the surface on the planet on one side of the board. Nemesis is a semi-cooperative survival horror game where anyone can betray anyone. So it's not just intruders that are the biggest concern for players. Everyone has a secret goal and wants to achieve it. There may be a quest there to kill another player, and I like games like this, where you can't be sure to anything, but rather have to assume that other will want to trick, betray, or even kill you. And the cool thing is that I also. And when you put all these things together, you have a really good horror story. So not 1 or 2, the best dungeon crawlers for me are Nemesis and Nemesis Lockdown. Did I mention that there will be no more small boxes, only the large one? As you have seen so far in this top list, was a lot of huge, large and big boxes, but in this case, in this position number 2, will be such a small exception, because Gloomhaven, Jaws of the Lion is, in my opinion, a very successful compression of the big version of this game. As you can see, this game is smaller, so it takes up less space on the bookshelf, which has been important to me for some time. In addition, its preparation setup, this game is incomparably faster than in the case of the large version of Gloomhaven. And this, among others, is one of the main reasons why Jaws of the Lion is so high in my top list. In this game we still have the same interesting and colorful adventures, fantastic world, enemies to defeat and missions to complete, but all in a successful compact package. And that is, in my opinion, the strength of this version of Gloomhaven. Quick setup, easy to prepare, great tutorial for new players, a little less choose to characters. It's a pity that there are no additional 2 in a base game, but the rest of the world is the same engaging adventure that offer player to less fun to play than in the great version of this board game. Additionally, there is a modern layout in Jaws of the Lion. This game looks so fresh. This is a ton of details on a board. Also, preparing for the game is pleasure. I set up a workbook, a binder, and to be honest, I'm done. I don't have to search for map tiles from whole stack like I do in the large edition of Gloomhaven. I even have places where to put the standees shown on the board, so players' convenience has been put first here, and I appreciate it very much in Gloomhaven. Jaws of the Lion, so today, position number 2. Okay guys, this is a moment has came for you to hear about my favorite dungeon crawler. Although in this case not really, because this board game is not a dungeon crawler. This board game is a dream crawler. As you can see, first place on my top list favorite dungeon crawlers, in this case dream crawlers, is Aetherfields. Each of these dreams takes me to a completely different and surprising place. It's so amazing in this game, so unpredictable and so perfect that it absolutely convinces me. To be honest, I'm enchanted by the fact that in every next adventure, in every dream, I'm surprised by something new, because it's always a completely new place, situation, task to be done. Something different is always happening, and pursuing the goal different and discover what this game hides. It's totally abstract world. For example, from a market full of some mannequins, I moved to the dairy docks, to the coast, or to the parks, or some tower in a strange land, or a train station. Okay, I don't want to tell you too much, so as not to spoil the fun of exploring it all, because that's the greatest pleasure, most precious treasures of this board game, the adventure and mystery you experience here. Additionally, I explore this entire world with kisses and decide with my team which gate we enter this time, which world we want to visit this time. At the same time, I find myself following details about his character, some traits from his past, because beside the dream playing out, it's important in Aetherfields to find the next pieces of this twist puzzle and, you know, put the whole story together in a way that fits together. You have to know that Aetherfields, it's a long game, and I think that's how this board should be approached. It may be a bit tiring for some of you play out naps and you know, fight repeating enemies, but it's also a very important part of the overall gameplay. This is ability to reset your character and you know, prepare for the next dream, and I didn't find it difficult, I didn't feel bad about it. So my favorite dungeon crawler is, as you can see, Aetherfields Dream Journey, which I recommended absolutely to everyone. Thank you guys for watching, I hope you enjoy, and if you like this video, leave a like, leave a comment and join to my subscribers. See you soon in the next video. Bye!
Dreams come true. This night means forever, and so does me and you.